The one thing that is holding you back the most in your life is probably your fear of failure. So, our brain is basically wired to protect us, and it's a survival strategy of our brain to keep us safe. Our brain naturally prefers consistency over unfamiliarity. So, we'll always pick the more safe route, the common route. And your brain has a bunch of strategies in order to keep you safe and in order to keep you comfortable. And those exact strategies that developed in order for you to survive, basically in the past, are keeping you stuck. So you need to figure out how to take advantage of these knowledge, how to change the way your brain is basically manipulating you into staying the same right now so that you can grow. So your mind is handicapping you. Think of a situation in which you weren't sure you were going to succeed. Think of a situation where you thought that you could possibly fail. A lot of the times, what your brain does is it actively handicaps you. So it creates excuses or obstacles in advance so that if you fail, you don't have to take responsibility for that. Let's say you have A levels coming up and you really need to prepare for those, but you're really scared to fail. And so your brain leads you to procrastinate. And in the end, you fail your A levels, but you can still say, oh, well, that's because I procrastinated, you know? You don't have to blame it on your lack of intelligence. You can simply blame it on your own laziness. And this is basically what your ego is trying to do. It's trying not to get hurt. And this is what your brain is trying to do. It's trying to protect your self worth and trying to protect your ego from failing. But here comes the but. So it's a good thing, right? You don't want to get crushed by your failures. So you might as well just, kind of underperform all the time so you don't have to take the responsibility for that, because if you would actually try, give it your all, study like nonstop and then still fail, that would mean you're stupid, right? No, actually it is not this way, because this survival strategy, this handicapping yourself, is only working in the short run. Yes, in the short run, it keeps your ego safe, it keeps your self worth stable. But in the long run, what really determines how much you value yourself is how well you can stick to your own commitments that you made for yourself, how well you can stick to your own goals. Self worth is essentially the reputation that you have with yourself. And of course, it's not a good one if you keep handicapping and keep manipulating yourself from becoming successful. So, our brain, really, this is a pattern that keeps showing up. Our brain prefers instant gratification over long term gratification. And this is exactly what happens in that scenario. In the short term, your brain protects your ego. In the short term, your brain keeps you safe. But in the long term, your brain keeps you from growing and your brain keeps you from becoming better. Same way your brain craves dopamine in the moment. Your brain craves reward in the moment and it tries to avoid punishment in the moment. But it doesn't really care about the long term consequences of what you're doing. This is why we are so prone to consuming junk food, consuming alcohol, consuming drugs, dumb scrolling all night long, because our brain wants the quick fix. It wants the quick solution because it's simply not really wired to think long term. But here is where you can intervene. If you know about the fact that your brain is actively holding you back in a lot of situations and sometimes will tell you to do the wrong thing, for example, to procrastinate instead of giving it your all, this is where you can intervene. A lot of people live their whole life in a fog like state where they never ever get to experience their true potential because they always let their mind ruin it for them. They always let their brain kind of make them underperform. They always stay safe, play it safe. And those people, I feel sorry for them because yes, maybe they're comfortable in the moment, but they never experience the joy of actually giving it their all, of actually just, you know, going full speed, trying everything without holding themselves back. And this is doing this, actually going full speed, actually trying something, actually facing yourself and facing your own abilities by really giving it your all, this is a journey that is extremely meaningful. And if you never get to experience it, then I'm sorry for you. So, in the long run, this ignorance and the unwillingness to look at yourself and to really look at your abilities, to really know yourself, to actually push your limits, to get to know your limits, because this is also what you don't learn. You don't learn your limits. You don't learn your abilities because you always are like at a sort of like at the standby mode. You're never really going full speed. You always cut yourself short. And so you never know what your boundaries are. You never know how limitless you can be. You never know your limits. You don't get to know yourself. This is why I said fog-like state. You avoid getting to know yourself because basically your limits, they give you sort of a orientation of who you are in the world. And if you never get to know those limits because you always stay in the safe zone, you're a stranger to yourself. In order to improve the relationship that you have with yourself and the reputation that you have with yourself in the long run, you have to fail. Failure is not the absence of success, but it's always a byproduct of success. And if you don't fail frequently, I would say that that is probably a sign that you are not operating at your best potential, because people who are successful, they fail regularly because they operate at a state where they're challenged, a state that is close to their limits. They are constantly exceeding the prior versions of themselves. And if you never fail and everything's kind of manageable, everything's kind of similar and familiar all the time, then you're probably not operating at your full potential, which is sad because again, you're missing half the story. You're missing parts of yourself that are definitely worth to explore. So what you have to do in order to stop fearing failure so much is you have to reframe it as being a part of success. And also you have to stop treating it like some kind of punishment. A lot of the times when people fail, they immediately try to distract themselves because they tie their self-worth to the outcome of the thing that they try to achieve. And if they fail, they think that that means that they're worth less. So they try to distract themselves immediately. No, this is not how you should go about failure at all. Essentially, failure is data. Failure is information that you can use for the future. The next time you fail, you are allowed to feel disappointed. It's okay. But then what you have to do differently is not run away from the failure and try to avoid thinking about it as much as possible. But no, you have to take everything you can from that failure. Analyze, what did I do? What did I do wrong? What could I have done better? What will I do better the next time I try? This is how you should go about your failures. And we're not really taught that. Failure is connected to so much shame and guilt that we avoid looking at it at all. But this is what is going to lead to failure over and over again. The only way that you will turn failure into success is by looking at the failure, looking at this darkness, actually facing what you did wrong, facing yourself, facing your shortcomings. Failure is essentially data, okay? So you're basically in unknown territory and the new situation is too big for you to conquer yet. And yet is the important part here. You have to treat every attempt that you get at doing this thing, at trying this thing, like an experiment, okay? So you go into the situation and increase the amount of preparement and increase the amount of energy that you put in the thing over and over again. And if you do this, if you attack the thing, the challenge that you're trying to overcome vicariously, continuously, you will somehow end up succeeding at it. If you try over and over again, and if you actually use the data from these failures to move you forward, you will succeed. no matter what it is. The thing about the thing that you're failing at is that it's most likely something static. The exam won't really get any more difficult, right? The mountain won't get bigger. Um, the marathon won't get longer, but you can grow. You're not static. You're constantly growing and you're constantly evolving if you choose to learn. And at some point, you will outgrow the challenge. And this is the point at which you will succeed. But you have to have the patience and the determination to let yourself grow to that point. And before you can grow to that point, you have to look at the failure and you have to analyze the failure and sit with the failure. And it will hurt at first to really dig deep and analyze what went wrong, what you did wrong, especially if it's something that was very important to you. Failure can also mean failing at a relationship or something. That will hurt at first, but the only way to grow from it is, as I said, to look at it and actually analyze it. But the reason that we are so scared of failure is not necessarily that it feels bad just because we failed, but it feels bad because we tie our entire identity to the outcome. So this is what people get confused with. They basically tie who they are to what happens, and you should never do that because outcomes can be uncontrollable. Sometimes things happen, and no matter how hard you try, you don't succeed at the thing in that moment. Let's say you're trying to run a marathon and you wake up that day and you have the worst stomach bug. This is something that you can't control. And so you shouldn't tie your self worth or your identity to the outcome. Instead, tie it to the process. Have you tried everything during your preparation? Have you put your mind to it? If so, then this changes nothing about your value. This is just a mental trap that we grow up with, and this is something that we're conditioned to believe, that school grades define us, that how many likes we get on a post, that defines us, that, what we have defines us. But in that very instant that you lose, that you fail, essentially nothing changes in that moment. Nothing about you changes. Nothing about who you are changes. Okay? This is what you have to realize. Be proud that you tried. Okay? Pat yourself on the shoulder for attempting the thing that you were scared to do at first, and then learn from the thing, analyze it, and use the failure as information to move you forward again and again, as long as it takes in order for you to succeed, to crack the code. It's basically like a calibration process, okay? So first you aim at a goal that is in the dark and in the distance, and okay, I'm probably not going to hit it. I would be very lucky if I would hit the goal. And after failing several times, it sort of gets more light, and you kind of figure out how to hold the arrow, and you kind of figure out what you have to do. And then you get closer and closer to the goal. This is essentially what growth is. It's failing over and over again and getting better in that process. The journey from trying to achieve that thing to actually achieving that thing becomes extremely meaningful and purposeful to you. This is the growth mindset, okay? Using your own failure as a lesson and using it as a way to create meaning in your life. I love failing at this point. I love it because it shows me who I am and who I'm yet to become. It shows me where my limits are and where I want to push my limits. It's beautiful. Also, remember that self-esteem is like a deposit bank. So it grows when you keep promises to yourself, when you try, and not when things always go right. This is something completely different. One thing you can control, which is how much effort you put in, and the other thing you can't control, which is the outcome you're going to get. So never tie your self-worth, your self-esteem to something that is uncontrollable, out of your reach. That doesn't make any sense, and it sets you up for failure. Show up, even when it's uncomfortable. Show up for yourself and start trusting yourself that you're going to show up no matter what, no matter how many times you failed before. Every small, honest effort that you take is like a deposit into this bank. Most people think that failure is a wall, when in reality, it's a staircase. And every misstep basically teaches you something that no book or mentor can, because this is your personal failure. Those were your personal factors, your personal shortcomings that led to the failure. Okay. So it's a training ground for you personally. Okay. So just a quick wrap up at the end. How can we actually fail forward? How can we actually use failure to our advantage? First, we have to redefine failure. Failure is not losing, it's data, it's information that can be used to move forward. And every attempt that we take gives us feedback about what works and what doesn't work. Second, we have to own the mistakes that we make. So we can't handicap ourselves. We can't immediately distract ourselves from the failing. We have to own it. No blaming somebody else, no blaming circumstances. Admit it, analyze it. The faster you own it, the faster you grow. 3, extract the lesson that you can take from the failure. Ask yourself, what did this teach me? What did this attempt show? And turn the pain into a playbook for the next round. 4, take action immediately. This is so important. Don't wait it out. Don't pause for months. Don't say, oh, yeah, I'm going to take a break and then come back stronger. No. Right now, the moment that you fell off the stairs, the moment that you fell on your face is the very best moment to stand up again, because all this knowledge, all this effort that you put in is still fresh and all the data is still available. You should try again and refine and recalibrate immediately. Momentum transforms lessons into results. 5, build resilience. So treat each failure like a rep in the gym. The more you practice bouncing back from the tiniest failures to the biggest failures, the stronger you become. So redefine, own, extract, act, and build. These are the 5 steps to overcoming and using failure as a tool to drive you forward. I hope that you guys could take something from this video, and I see you guys in the next video. Bye.